like to introduce Dan Lee, who is a friend that I've known for 4 years, and we've been we met through the M&A industry. He's a partner at Comvest Credit, and Dan and I have been going through our mutual journeys with exercise, nutrition. I got a text from him talking about his routine. I'm like, damn, I'm quite lazy. So Dan, can you kind of give the high level about how you know Coach Dana, and then we'll bring in Coach.
Sure, of course. Jordan, thanks for the invite to be here. It's always so great to talk with you and with Dana, who I'm just incredibly blessed to have met. I met Dana through a good buddy of mine, Steve Noodleberg, who's the best. He introduced me to Dana down in West Palm Beach, and I didn't know it at the time, but 6 months later, I hired him as my coach. I said, I need some help here, man. I am struggling hard. And it's funny, I hired him thinking he'll give me the answers, and he never did. It really pissed me off.
It was the same thing. I literally asked him, can you send me a PowerPoint of like, what's our workout plan? Like, what's our routine? Like, what a complete idiot. Like, yeah, let me ask for advice. Let me tell the coach of the New York Yankees strength team, like, how to coach me. I was such a dumbass. Now, 6 months later, things are a little bit different.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So he was smart enough. Dana trained Jeter. He trained A-Rod. He knows what the hell he's doing. And man, he turned me around. And I owe him a debt, man. It's because I'm in a totally different place now, 18 months after we started working together. So awesome. He's a great friend and someone that's had a huge impact on my life.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And Dan, definitely no debts are owed by any means. So thank you all for coming on, and thanks for having me, Jordan and Dan.
For sure.
And it's always good to jam with you guys. And for me, I spent my whole career with the Yankees as a director of strength and conditioning and performance. And people say, well, what did you do? What do you teach a guy like Jeter? What do you teach a guy like A-Rod? What do you teach a guy like Pettit? And the reality is, these guys are the best at what they do, much like many of you, but they're always trying to be better. They always are fighting for excellence. They want to be the best. These are type A, high horsepower killers that are out there to be the best. Now, when you work with people like that, whether it's in sports or whether it's in business, and I work with a lot of guys now in finance, you see so many similarities. Why people that are the best at what they do, why they are the best at what they do. You start to learn that, but you also start to see commonalities and what the issues are that come with being the best at what it is that you do. So, we're talking about extremists. We're talking about highly focused, unbreakable individuals that are that way until they break. And that's where I usually step in, is I get people when they reach a level of either plateau or frustration, or they're not meeting their own desired potential in their own life. And that's where I come in. So whether you're a pro athlete, whether you're in private equity or, whatever you're in, CEO, executive, we all want to be great. And I'm fortunate to work with guys like Jordan and Dan and a bunch of others that trust me with helping to make them better than they are today.
Dan, maybe you and I can kind of give where we were at maybe 6 months ago and kind of use that to help set the stage. If it's helpful, I'll kick off with how I was sucking at life 6 months ago. This was back in May when Coach and I first really started to work together, and the business was going to shit because of COVID, had to lay off people, sales are drying up. And then you have the kids who are coming home from daycare, and everything was happening. I mean, I was probably drinking daily. I was eating like shit. I think I lost count of the ice creams that I was munching on. And it was just a negative energy state that I was in. Now, fast forward 6 months to kind of show the compare and contrast. Now we're working out like 5 and 6 days a week. Every single morning, we leave the house with the family. We're on the pier doing a 15-minute hit. Nutrition during the day is significantly better. Having the water here, drinking maybe once or twice a week. Not as many ice creams. I'm not giving that up. I'm sorry. I'm keeping the shakes. It's part of it. But I think one of the most interesting things is that the whole family identity has changed. Like my daughter, my 4-year-old, the way that she gets out of eating vegetables at dinner is she goes to the middle of the floor and does burpees. Like, Daddy, look at me. I'm like, cool, go eat your vegetables. But I think one of the, the biggest takeaways I've had in the past 6 months is the need for consistency and not overcomplicating things before I start. And, coach just kept on hounding that into me. He's like, you're screwing it up because you're overthinking this. Like, just make pizza, make the hamburger, keep it simple. And then the last part I'll have to kind of take myself down 5 notches is that 6 months later, my wife has still reminded me that where are the abs? So I was like, this is directly correlated to Five Guys shakes. I am not giving that up, but I will do the other stuff. So Dan, what about you? How's your journey been over the past 6+ months, the time you've been working?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'll take it back a little further because it was like kind of 2 years ago that I met Dana, and I had just recently been demoted, is the honest answer. Not literally, but my 2 partners were promoted, and I was put into the business development role, which felt like a huge slap in the face. But to go from being a partner, that's one of the guys that manages the business, to selling, and handing my business cards at conferences. And I was really bitter about it at first, man. I was like, this is BS, like I'm better than this. I deserve more than this. And it was tough. That's when I met Dana, and I was just struggling. And, we had a meeting at Joe and the Juice where we're sitting down. He's like, how's it going? I'm like, yeah, it's going okay. He's like, okay. What do you need to do? And I was like, I gotta make more calls. He's like, okay, so do it. I'm like, well, it's not quite that easy. I mean, I have other responsibilities, I have things, and I have stuff, and I got that. And he's like, make the calls, Dan. He's like, what are you doing? And so I can tell you it's, and then when COVID hit, and so that was the hard message for me to take. I heard it and I recorded it, and I said, yeah, coach is right about a lot of stuff, but I don't think he's right about that. I don't need to really make the calls. So I was just dodging it, man. I was dodging the work. And then I just started and just picking up the phone and dialing for dollars. And when COVID hit, I was slowly building some momentum. When COVID hit, I thought my job was in jeopardy. I didn't think it was in jeopardy because I did a bunch of restaurant deals, and it looked like those were all going to crater. And if those crater, I don't have a job. I mean, maybe I do, but I got to earn it back. I got to earn my position back. So it lit a fire under me. Out of fear at first. But then I just started thriving in it, just every day, setting a schedule of 15 calls, boom, 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 and just working my ass off. And my assistant would schedule my calls, and she's like relentless. I would get up in the morning like, holy shit, like this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna be tired at the end of the day, and I am. I'm tired at the end of the day, and it's awesome. And I had the most productive summer of my career, literally. And I'm having a great fourth quarter, and 2021 is going to be bananas. And it's in the past, I would have said, look at what I'm doing. Look at how great this is. Look at how many deals I got done. And now it's just, don't waste my time with that. I got work to do, just let me get back to work. It's good. Great. Milestones, close the deal, have a drink, toast, but then get back to work because there's so much more to be done.
Man, it's so interesting. You started off with your mental state as opposed to your physical part, because that's one of the things that coach has helped me out the most with. And he's like, get that shit together first. He didn't say that, he's much kinder. Get that together first. And then guess what? 6 months later, because I had that foundation, and that's now the DNA, like come hell or high water, I'm working out at 7:15 in the morning. Like everything else is better. Or if we lose a pitch, for example, I'm just able to process it better.
Right.
So yeah, coach, over to you. Like, what are your thoughts on, on this?
So I'll kick off with this just as it relates to Jordan. Most people, they work out to get fit, right? And for me, when I develop people to enhance their performance from the physical side and the mental side, especially as it relates to the business side of things, I firmly believe if you get yourself physically more in shape and mentally more in shape, the business will have better results. So you have a lot of people that are very smart, they can work. They have great work ethic as it relates to their business. But ultimately, as you stretch that out and over time, you'll start to see what takes them down is not their business acumen or deal-making skills. It's something on the other side: physicality, mentality, relationship. It's usually one of those three things that takes them down. And, so with Jordan, it's always about simplifying. Because again, these sort of minds that I get to work with, they're masters of complicating, right? What app can I use? Or, do you have a PowerPoint that can talk more about this? Right. And there's more trying to figure out more details and get deeper and deeper and deeper. But the deeper you go, sometimes the more costly it is to you doing the most important thing, which is taking action. And when Dan and I sat down at Joe and the Juice, it was, Dan, hey, when it comes to monetizing in your line of work and what you do, what is it that leads to the most monetization? And without hesitation, he said, calls. And I said, well, how many calls are you making? And he basically said, not many. And it breaks down as simple as this, right? What you do that makes you the most money is make calls. What you're not doing a lot of is making calls, yet you want to make a lot of money and be great at deal making. So the one thing that leads to success you're not doing. And how many of us, can relate to that, because we're so inundated with the next program. And this is what I had to talk to Dan about. And Jordan, we'll get to you too, but with Dan, it was like, I'm joining this, I'm joining that. I'm at Barry's boot camp. I'm doing yoga. I have someone coming to the house. I'm doing this. And I said, how many things are you going to do? And Dan, there was some event that you were about to sign up for. That was like the SEAL thing.
SEAL training. Yeah.
And that was sort of it. And I got to say, what was so interesting about that event for you, I feel like that event, and you just, I think for the first time, you realized how much you were spending and how much you were stretching and doing. And I believe this. I believe that you realized that you weren't getting the return that you needed. And you took the power back for yourself and said, you know what? Instead of looking to all these external things, I'm going to take control of myself, and I'm going to start to dominate, and I'm going to start to do the things, make the calls. I'm not going to do 5 workout classes a day because I'm overcompensating for other things. I'm going to do what I have to do to be great. And that's what I'm going to commit to. And one thing with you, as I always say, show me what's on your schedule. So I get great joy when Dan sends me a snapshot of his schedule, because one of my big sayings is, show me your schedule and I'll show you your life. Show me your schedule and I'll show you your results. So that's what I'm most proud of, is somebody that realized, hey, I get it now. I got to take this back. I got to take control. And that's what I'm going to do. No more bullshit. No more extra stuff that's just taking up time and space and fill and anchoring me down. I'm cutting all that and I'm going after it.
Coach, what do you think it is about, I think I've experienced something very similar in that Dan and I kind of go at an equal level of intensity on our things that are physical. And then what I'm hearing from Dan's story, and maybe mine as well, it's like, but the things that are equally challenging, that are mental, is being deprioritized. Like, I'll do this after I run. Like, after I get my, my 5-mile run at 9 p.m. tonight, which is the second workout in the day because I did my 7:15, then I'm going to get to that pitch. But I wonder what it is about that physical manifestation of challenge versus the mental, which is equally challenging.
Yeah. Well, I believe this. I believe most high performers are very, not just anxious, they sit at an intersection of anxiousness and paranoia. So it's that intersection that creates a lot of hyperactivity and the desire to burn off. What I say is burn that top layer. If you think of like dogs, right? We're like wild dogs. And what do you do when a dog gets stir crazy in the house? You take it out for a run. You take it out for some activity, and the dog comes back a new person. We work.
Man, why are you getting red over there?
This is too soon, Coach. It reminds me of Caesar Milan. You used to have that show.
Yeah. The dog whisperer.
Yeah, these dogs are like crazy, right? They're like out of control, and they all have a different story. And in like 50 minutes into the show, he'd be like, "The dog needs exercise." But literally, that was like every show ended with "Get a treadmill" or "Take him for a walk." That was it. That's how you whisper a dog. That's how you whisper me too.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? I mean, I always think about it, right? We sit in these chairs, we sit under these lights, we have constant stimulation. It's not the best thing for us. Unfortunately, it's part of our reality. So we have to be aware of that, but we have to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to be at what I say, a place of calm, even though we're nuts. And again, I work with crazy people. But I believe that crazy people change the world. I believe that crazy people are the outliers in their company. So when I ask the folks that I work with, hey, when it comes to your business and what you do, where do you sit? And most of them are somewhere near the top because that's what they demand from themselves. And when they're not near the top, all hell breaks loose within them. They start seeking, searching, chasing, doing things that are out of character. And they always find their way back, but it's sometimes through this negative journey that takes them back to the place of positive. So we run, we exercise, we do all these things because we're nervous people. At times we don't trust our success, or when we get success, we feel like it's going to be stripped. I work with somebody that has, quite a few billions under management. And the biggest fear that he had was losing it all. And I said, well, do you carry that fear with you every day? And he says, yes, I do. I said, well, let's do this. Let's do a little exercise. Walk me through the steps that would have to happen for you to lose it all. And when we started to do that, he realized very quickly how crazy it is to think that you're going to lose it all.
Right.
And that's that person's high performance journey. For someone that's 30, 40 pounds overweight, I say that's the elephant in the room for that person, most likely. So we start to, we approach it from that standpoint. If it's a divorce and that's weighing on you, like Dan, the one thing I'll say, and I appreciate how open you are with all of this stuff. When we had lunch that day in Palm Beach, I actually felt that you were reaching out for something, like you needed support and you needed you hold a lot in.
Yes.
And we talked about this early is you have so much to give and so much to share. But you were trying to be so perfect and create this image of perfection that it was killing you inside.
Yeah. Well, I created this false narrative that I successfully created it, that I was in a happy marriage, and I created it to the world. And as long as the world thought it was true, then it didn't matter that I was in a loveless marriage and wasn't being a good father to my son. And everything was to protect that image. That was it. That's, very Trumpian, frankly. It's whatever, as long as people believe what I'm saying and I've got my arm around my wife and I'm holding my son's hand, then I'm good. And when that was taken away from me very abruptly, I was shattered. There's no other way to say it, because I realized I'm a shitty father. I'm a shitty husband. I'm not a very good son or brother. And how the hell did that happen? I'm a good person. I grew up in Minnesota. I've got a great family. How did I get so far astray? And the answer is I took that paranoia and anxiety and just funneled it into that image, right? And I got knocked off my pedestal and onto my ass is what happened. So what I did to try to compensate for that, I said, well, I got to look strong. So I'm going to go towards kickboxing. I'm going to go towards boxing. I'm going to go towards training with the SEALs. And I would tell everyone, I'm training with SEALs, boxing, out of my way, I'm kickboxing here. And it took me time, and you were a big part of helping me understand it. I need yoga, man. I need yoga. I'm strong enough. I'm tough enough. I don't need to be doing this shit at my age. So I still love boxing and kickboxing, but I balance out with yoga, and I love it. It's so calming, and it just becomes such an integral part of my day.
And there was one other thing though too, Dan, with you. It was also not trying to be a New York guy. It was also embracing the Minnesota Midwesterner in you. And I remember having that conversation because it allowed you to embrace who you were. And that was the biggest thing. Because, for anybody on this line, and this is always a message I give myself, don't forget the root of success is always self-confidence.
Yeah, I was ashamed of being from Minnesota, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but they make movies about Fargo, And I mean, like Fargo, where they talk funny, and oh yeah, that's how and they make them look kind of rubish. And so I think, God, I wish I was from somewhere cool like Boston or Miami or New York. And now it's like I am so friggin' happy that I'm from Minnesota, because it gave me roots. My family gave me roots. That I lost my way, but man, it's like the everything's there. Everything's there for me, and I just need to. I love sharing. And I love sharing who I am, like fully, warts and all. That's just. I used to hate the fact that I have a tiny head and a big nose, and that's terrible. Zoomland, that's horrible. Like that's not a good.
We'll fix it in post-production. Don't worry.
That's why I just look at it. But I'm like, hey, that's who I am. That's who I am. And I've done a lot of great stuff, and I have great days now. I have bad days, but I have so many more great days than bad days because I found my workout bookends. 45 minutes to an hour in the morning, 45 minutes to an hour at night. Includes yoga, includes stuff that's stretching. And then I just come to work and I just love what I do,
you go to work and work.
Yeah.
You make the pizza.
But it feels like playing, Coach. That's the beautiful part,
Yeah.
Like, it's fun. It's crazy.
Hey, Dan, I want to bring this up too. There's two parts to this. One part, and Jordan, I'm sorry to take the host role just in this question, but you had talked about earlier this promotion that you had, and I remember you were like, oh, I'm now the overseer, and I remember us talking about this, and it's like you were elevated to a title that was more of an overseer, but I think you realized too that you were more of a hand-to-hand combat guy. Like you're a trenches guy, you're a sales guy, you love the people, and I think that was also causing you a lot of sort of pull and stress and just identity issues within your workplace.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we got promoted to partner, and one of my partners said, "Thanks for giving me more comp. That's great, and some ownership, but can I keep the managing director title?" And I just didn't understand that. I was like, "That's just dumb. Everyone wants the top title, and everyone wants to be management. And with being partner, that was part of it at the time, was your management." And I went along and everything was great. And the three of us were building the business out, and it was going great. And then all of a sudden one day they said, you're not managing the business anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? I was one of the people that helped build this place. And the answer was, you're just not cutting it. It's not what you're meant to do. And if you don't make business development work, there's no role for you here. And that's not a threat. It's just, we need you moving the needle for our investors. That's reality. Anyone that's not moving the needle for investors, it's partners on a title for life. People get churned out all the time. And so thank God that, and that was really, so it's really hard for me to say, okay, I got to pick up the shovel and start digging. And that took me years. I was wandering, man. And I was also coming out of the divorce, and my head was spinning, and it was, working out became the most important part of my day, because that was where I had control, and work was just punching in, punching out, and just kind of daydreaming. And so I didn't know how to do that job. I had forgotten. And then when I started doing it, I realized I'm really bad at this. I would bring deals in to my poor partners. I'd bring these in, and I'd like the baby with the dirty diaper, like, here you go, look what I brought, look what I did, and they're like, dude, that's a terrible deal. What are you doing? I'm like, no, it's not. It's my deal. It's good. And they, they're like, why are you fighting us? This is a horrible company, Dan. And I just couldn't, it took me a long time to kind of just learn to be objective and not think that anything that I do is by definition great. No, that's definitely not true. So I had partners that could tell me that in a kind way, but they had to get more and more forceful about it, because I kept trying to just jam stuff through because I wanted to make it happen.
That's awesome. This one of the key takeaways, like in the story that you shared, Dan, about the family, and my experience with Coach in the past 6 months, is it has highlighted the need for balance. I thought that this was going to be a one-dimensional coaching coaching young grasshopper type of dynamic, where it was going to be focused on physical stuff, exercise, But what I noticed is like half our conversations were like about family and like, and then but it wasn't him asking the specific things like, are you being a good dad? But the way that he coached was me just learning to ask those questions. And I realized I was being a shit dad and a shit husband. And this goes back to late 2018, early 2019, when Jing was giving me feedback and just, we do our annual marriage review. And we just had our annual marriage review last weekend. I passed, renewed the contract for a year.
Congrats.
Yes, thank you. But she gave me some really direct feedback, and it's just like, you care more about everything else but me and the family. You care more about helping transitioning veterans than you do about me. And then it's like, but I'm doing this for the business. I'm doing this for the nonprofit. And like, look at this. She's like, yeah, but I just want you. And then one of the things in the past 6 months through us working together and just that constant pounding for balance and simplicity, now it feels weird to say this, but I am the happiest I have ever been in my life. And my family, we are the happiest we have ever been in our life, even though our financial situation is marginally better than previous years. And so it's all come through having this balance of, in the morning, you're with family, you're working out, you are producing for the family, you're helping, you're not just handing off. And so I found like greater, that's one of the things I underestimated was that it's a whole person approach, as opposed to, here's your set, do this 5 times a week, let's regroup next week.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing where I feel people struggles, right? They say, okay, I'm out of shape, let me get a trainer. Okay, my back hurts, let me go to a chiropractor. Okay, my shoulder's aching, I'm gonna go to a physical therapist. Oh, my head isn't right, I'm gonna go to a shrink. Okay, I need this. And so now they've surrounded themselves with a team of 9 practitioners, and it's a disconnected model. And they're trying to get it all to connect. So what I do when I coach folks, again, in sports and business, is it's all about connecting, right? So it's looking at, I call it this sort of performance continuum. And I look at it from a standpoint, I have a little bit of a drawing that I did here. I don't know, for those of you that are not calling in, but are on with us, you'll be able to see this. But I call it the gap, right? And the gap is where I am to where I want to be. And it's our job to close that gap. But in order to close the gap, we have to actually know where we are. And the only way we can know where we are is to be honest with ourselves about where we are. Hey, you know what? I'm sucking at business right now. That could be a where I am. I'm not meeting my income potential right now. That could be a where I am. I could be 10 pounds overweight. That could be a where I am. But I could be low energy, where I am. Poor relationship with spouse, overworked, over fatigued, confused, not focused, trying to do too much. These are all where I am's. But I always say, when you get focused on closing that gap, on the other side is the where I want to be. Mm-hmm. So if you're 10 pounds overweight and now you get in not great shape and you go to 10 pounds underweight, great shape, how does that immediately change you? If your relationship with your wife is subpar and you commit to saying, hey, these are the steps that I need to take to close the gap, and you take it to thriving or at least quite a bit better than it is, bam, you close the gap. Not spending time with your kids to spending time with your kids. Close the gap. That's the key. You have to close the gap. I did a call with a family the other night. Very interesting. This guy's, in finance, and he says, hey, would you do a call with me and my family? We're a little bit of a shit show right now. I said, yeah. And I spoke to the son and I said, what do you want most from your dad right now? And he said, it really upsets me when I ask my dad to play a board game with me and he tells me he's got to go do the next call or he doesn't have time. And it's like, so I said, so if he were to sit down and play a board game with you, how would that make you feel? He goes, I'd feel great. I'd feel connected to my dad. I'd feel happier. I'd feel more supported. So all the father has to do is play a 30-minute game of Monopoly with his son, and he closes that gap. When it comes to his wife, what is he not doing there? So to address your physicality and not address the other things is the dumbest prescription I've ever heard anybody give another person, because it's incomplete. So physicality is just one rung on the ladder. Now we got to get these other things connected. And when we do that, you know, that paranoia that we were talking about and that anxiousness, it goes away because you've closed those gaps. And I'm going to share this. This is an important point. When it comes to, let's say, a professional athlete, you know, there's a lot of people out there that say, just focus on somebody's strengths. Just focus on your strengths. Just focus on your strengths. But I'm going to tell you what, when the temperature gets turned up and the pressure elevates, it is not your strengths that are going to take you down. It's your weaknesses. Yeah. So we always do a complete intake and a complete model to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what do you most importantly perceive as your biggest weakness. And for you to articulate with your biggest weaknesses, you're able to do that because it's on your mind. And then it's my job as a coach to help you no longer see that as a weakness because you're improving it. And once a high performer and a type A high horsepower killer knows that they're working on that weakness and they apply their energy to it, that weakness is no longer perceived as a weakness. And that creates the ultimate position of strength and the position for success for that person.
Man, I've got a great one for you, Coach. So a couple thoughts. I love all that. So I've learned that I want to come back to weakness because I got an awesome one for you that I just learned. So I've learned that I want to be great at balance and great at consistency rather than great at business or great at working out or great. It's balance and consistency. I love this idea of dynamic equilibrium. Like people think equilibrium is just static, right? No, it's not. It's like a tightrope. You know, you're moving a little bit. You're poised. You're not anxious, but you're poised. But you're also taking time to recover and breathe. The thing I love the saying, kids spell time TIME. Or sorry, kids spell love TIME. And I've realized that. And Jordan, you and I talked about this a year ago. And I talked about how, you know, I'd come around to Griff and I'm on his terms. And I've realized recently with COVID, I'm like, I'm giving him electronics time because I feel bad for him. I'm like, it's just hard. He's got Connie, his nanny is amazing, but she's really rigid with him and he benefits from that. But I'm his kind of play time and relax time. And every time I do something with him, take off electronics, he's like, awesome. I feel like I'm taking the electronics away from him when that's what he wants. So, you know, I'm still learning that. Coach, weakness, you're going to love it, right? Okay. I realized like I'm doing all this stuff. I'm doing all this strength training, kettlebells, strength work. And I realized I hate pull-ups. You know, I hate pull-ups. I've just always been terrible at them. So 2 months ago, I got a pull-up tower, right? Got my mirror, got my Peloton, got my fight camp, and now I got a pull-up tower. And for 2 months, Coach, I was walking past that thing and it was just mocking me. It's like, you wuss, puny little kid. And I would not get on it. I was like, not yet. And I kept walking. It was just like in the back of my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Just freaking jump on it and get to work. Just see what you can do, right? It's not going to be pretty. And so Saturday, I moseyed up to it and grabbed on 3. I did
good.
I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that's pathetic for someone that works out as much as I do. And that's where I am. And that's what it's every day. I'm doing 3 pull-ups, 3 chin-ups, 10 push-ups, 10 dips. I can do more push-ups than that, obviously. But it's just like, I love the fact that I'm at 3. And now I got something, because I know a year from now, I'm going to be, I don't know where I'll be, but I know I'm going to be laughing about the fact that I was scared of that pull-up tower, right? And I'm just going to be crushing it. And I'm not going to be, I don't say I'm going to be crushing it because as a proclamation. It's more just, I know that every day, in the morning, at night, I'm going to get my pull-ups in. And it's gonna, I don't know when it'll start scaling. It's going to take time. It's going to take months, but once it scales, it's going to be, I'll know I slayed another beast, you know. It's like, okay.
And it kind of reminds me of something where in Jesse Itzler, he, you know, had David Goggins live with him. And one of the key ideas in that book was the idea of 40%. And he said, basically, when you think you're done, you're only 40% done. And that made me think about, you know, in the past 3 months, I've been doing a fair amount of running, did half marathons and did a marathon on October 17th. And one of the things I noticed in my own training is, guess which mile out of my 5 miles, 10 miles, 13 miles, guess which mile I was running the fastest? The last mile. Wow. I'm like, wait a second. Why did I have that much left in me? So, Coach, I was wondering, like, what what you've seen with high performers and that balance between, not doing what you are capable of. And yeah, you do have a lot left in the tank on that last mile, versus balancing that with smart training. So I'll give you an idea of dumb training. I did a marathon on October 17th, 9-minute miles, 2 hours on the first half, and I tanked it on the second half. I was 3 minutes slower than last year, despite training, and I had 0 training last year. And so it's like, what is that balance of going all in and then not having that, not knowing how to balance that with, yeah, you still have more in. You should probably get after it.
Yeah. I think most people have a lot more left in their tank than they believe they have. And again, that belief, right? If you believe that you may run out of air, or you believe that you may run out of energy, or you believe that, you may get cement boots at mile 20, what I find is like with a lot of endurance athletes too, some of them, they play so conservatively to make sure that they could finish. So right from the beginning, they're thinking about trying to finish instead of trying to excel through the finish. So they set their time, but once they start, they're very aware oftentimes of what's going on physiologically. I don't want to run out of energy. I don't want to run out of nutrition. And when you put all that stuff together, remember that paranoia I was talking about? They're playing with paranoia. And that's oftentimes, see, most people I find, again, in the high performance spectrum, they're very afraid of rejection. They're very afraid of loss, and they're extremely afraid of failure. So if you're afraid of rejection, loss, and failure, well, first of all, you're not human, because every human is going to experience rejection, loss, and failure. But if you're playing to not fail, if you're playing to not be rejected, and you're playing to not lose, that means you're not playing to win, and you're not playing to succeed, because you have to realize that both success and failure go together. But if you're trying not to fail, or you're trying to not run out of energy, or you're trying, the knots, you're actually playing defense, and you don't score points playing defense. You score points playing offense. So I encourage people, listen, rip the Band-Aid off, rip the scab off, play open, play free. And most entrepreneurs, again, again, these type A folks, right? They mind fuck the shit out of themselves that's how I have to put it, because they're just so concerned with so many different things. If I were to say to your daughter, Jordan, tell your daughter, hey, go run over there, she's not going to say, well, hold on, do I have the right shoes? How fast should what should my time be to get there? She's just going to go run. And it's the same thing. So as a coach, what I do is I work to distill everything down to its most simple form for people. Dan, how do you make money? Making calls. Why aren't you making calls? Right? How many calls do you need to make a day? Well, I should probably do 15 to 20 calls a day. How many are you doing? I'm doing 5 in 3 days. There's probably an issue there.
Yeah.
So it goes for everything in your life. What, nutrition, it's very simple. I always say, eat clean, eat lean, and eat green. That's very simple nutrition. Clean, lean, and green, right? Lean meats, right? Lean, fish is a lean protein, lots of green vegetables, and clean food. No fry, no additives, no dressings, and all the extra slop. That doesn't mean you can't have any of it. It just means don't make that the staple of your diet, all the extra stuff. Clean, lean, green, there's your nutrition, right? So this is how we have to start approaching things. And I guarantee you, when you look at what you do on a day-to-day basis in your professional life, so many of us are doing too many things instead of saying, hey, what's the one thing I do that leads to direct monetization and can take me from where I am to being a great performer in my industry? Just do that.
It's interesting when you're talking about this. It's just making me think back 6 months ago when I was like, all right, what's my nutrition plan? What's my exercise plan? What's this plan? And all of that was like a way to procrastinate.
Yeah.
And then now, 6 months later, now I can start thinking about, it wasn't until month 5 when you're basically like, all right, cool, go check your weight. I didn't check my weight for 5 months. And also the other thing is that now 6 months later, like now I can actually start seeing a difference. I felt different with cardio, but now I actually look different at month 5 and month 6. But the interesting thing is, like, now I'm at that stage to start refining and working on adding on the things onto the foundation, which
But Jordan, you were focused on one very important thing. You know, so many of us are just focused on the outcome. I always say, set your intention. Hey, I want to run a marathon, or hey, this is the revenue target that I have for myself, right? Just set that. And now every day, just go execute on a process that works for you. Dan's process is not working for Jordan. Jordan's process isn't working for Dan. Both high horsepower guys, you know, both have kids, you know, it doesn't matter. 2 different people. So Jordan has his process that leads him to success. Dan has his process that leads him to success. You set your intention and you realize this. It may not happen in your exact timeline, but if you do the work and you bang the drum every day, you're going to get closer to the outcome in which you set. And that's how you have to do it. Every day, I do this, I do this, I do this over and over and over and over and over again. And that compounds.
So can we talk about,
I bought a wall calendar, 2 years ago for my home gym. And I got to write down all the workouts I'm going to do, because I'm going to do a lot of workouts, and I'm going to it's all strength stuff. And that's barren. There's not a single piece of marker on it. It's been there for 2 years. I've done thousands of workouts, not exaggerating, in that time. And I didn't need to write it down. I just needed to do it. I didn't need the plan, Jordan, to your point. I didn't need to make sure I ate perfectly. I didn't need to make sure I'm fueled properly. I'm wearing the right gear. That's why I love working out barefoot, by the way. Muay Thai, yoga, like all my workouts I do barefoot at home. And it's awesome. And the other thing that, Jordan, you helped me realize recently was I grew up a runner, and I was good. I was all state. I ran a 425 mile. And now when I go do 5Ks, corporate 5Ks, I'm finishing the top 1 or 2 of my age group, and I don't really train. So that's just
Wait, what? You didn't tell me any of this.
Yeah.
Me neither.
You're sandbagging for November 21st when you're running a half marathon. And like, yeah, I'm doing the full marathon, so I'm better than October. You're sandbagging.
Listen, I keep it quiet for a reason. But so the problem is I like setting the bar low. But what I was going to say is I'm used to, the last couple of years I've been doing all strength and speed, hit work and boxing. And when I would go for a run, it'd be like 2 miles fast. And I would think while I'm running, do they see how fast I am? They see I just passed that guy, went right past him. Look at that. Look at me. And I'm doing just the opposite now. And just started. Jordan, you spurred it, which is I'm going to slow down. I'm going to start going back to endurance. I'm getting the strength work in. I'm getting the hit work in. I don't need to do more of that. I need to offset it and to work on the endurance side. I've got the strength and energy side in spades. Now, can I endure? Can I just stay at it like a donkey?
So what are you identifying in that? A weakness?
Yeah, a strength that became a weakness.
Yeah. And now you close the gap.
Yeah, because endurance has always been. I've always been a mule. Just point me in the direction and set me out, and I'm plop 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 plop. But I wasn't using it.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to develop what was a weakness before was strength and speed. And so I was like developing those, but then it goes back to that balance, right? Like just so much happier when I have balance and diversity. I was doing all just berries, all just boxing, all just flywheel. And now mix them up and it's so much better.
Yeah. Because you have an openness.
You used to text me and say, I'm doing another flywheel. So now I have some diversity in the text from you. Well, let's maybe bring this home. And, I'd love to kind of give the audience who's attending, as well as people who are going to listen and watch this, some specifics around 2 questions. One question is, I don't know where the hell to start. What do I do? I started something during COVID. I've lost it. I don't know where home base is. So that's one question. And the second question is, okay, I'm 6 months into this. I feel like I have a good foundation. What are some concepts that I should use to be a high performer?
So I would say this, for those that are looking to get started, you know, like any trip, right? You have to pick your destination. And I know this sounds so like, you know, self-help book, pick your destination. But I really, I ask yourself this question, like, what is it? What does winning mean to me? That's what I start with. You know, what does winning mean to you? And literally distill that down into three things, three bullet points. 1, 2, 3. That's what winning means to you. Like I talked to a guy yesterday in finance as well. And I said, what does winning mean to you? He goes, it's really important for me, you know, that I can send my kid, you know, to a private school in Fairfield County where I live. I said, that's great. If that's winning to you, that's fantastic, you know? And that was really for him, he was that simple and that clear, you know, and it's like, okay, what does that cost? Okay. So what would you have to earn? Okay. And can you live the rest of your life with that? Okay. So we got that. So the question I always ask is, what does winning mean to you? Start there, 3 bullets. For those that are 6 months into their journey, you could actually ask the same question and say, hey, based on where I am right now, what does winning mean to me at my next phase, right? I'm doing better with my wife. Great. I'm being a better father. Great. I'm not eating as much crap. Great. My physical fitness is peak. Great. What's my next step up the ladder? See, because some people would say, well, coach, been talking about balance. Like I'm living in balance. I should just sort of coast right now. And that's not the mindset of a high performer. A high performer always says, what's next? So we have to retarget. We have to retool at the 6-month marker where we are now. We have to retool and say, hey, okay, I did this on the fly 26-mile marathon. What's next? Physically. Maybe there's another gear for your family, Jordan, specifically. Where can we go? Do we want to move? That may be what's next. So the constant ask of what does winning mean for me, and then checking yourself to make sure that you're in alignment with that at all times is a very, very powerful tool and a very powerful exercise. We all know when we're 10 pounds overweight, and we all know when we're in great shape. We know when we're stressed. We know when we're not. We know when we're great dads, and we know when we're bad dads. We know when we're great husbands, and we know when we're bad husbands.
Man, that's so good. Like, what does winning mean? You know, I think, Dan, you might have a similar personality where we are so focused on us and maximizing our workouts to be the best winners that we can be. And then, you know, one of the things I've noticed for myself is now taking that concept of how can our family win? How can, like, what is the simple concept of like a 4-year-old winning the day mean? And bringing that mentality because it's part of a growth mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think I totally agree. I think going back to your question, Jordan, for me, you know, I think it's number one, start, as we've been talking about. Just you got to start, but you got and you got to be consistent. So those are the two things: start and be consistent. But you do have to assess, right? Because I can tell you that I didn't go into my marriage saying, "Gee, I hope this thing crashes horribly and you know shocks me and makes me feel humiliated." That was not the goal, but I got there, and I did it, you know, daily by just marching down that path. I wasn't 90 degrees off. I was 1 or 2 degrees off, but I was there for long enough that suddenly I got to a place where I thought, who am I? What am I doing? And that same thing with my job. Wasn't that far off, but I convinced myself I was doing the work, but that little bit compounded over time. So I love that concept, by the way. The compounding is one of the greatest theories in the history of finance, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the great life theories. Everything compounds if you stick with it and apply it consistently. There's a saying that I love, which is, if you're lucky, every mile that you travel on the journey gets 2 miles longer. So that sounds depressing, right? Like, wait a minute, I'm making progress, but the destination's getting further away. Yeah, isn't that cool? Like you're always gonna be. The other one that I love is it's the journey is not a destination. It's not a distant star. It's not a distant shore. It's a North Star, right? You're never gonna reach it. You're never gonna be exonerated. No one's ever gonna say, hey, congrats, you won. You're gonna have victories along the way. But if you're lucky, the journey gets harder as you go because you keep on taking bigger bites and bigger challenges. And that's kind of daunting in a way, right? Because it's like, oh my God, that's exhausting. Yeah. How great is that, right? Just go fucking live and take on.
You know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of something interesting. You know, a saying that another one that I use is, you got to know the rules of the game in which you play.
Yeah.
So if we know there's no destination, and if we know that 2 miles are added to every mile that we go, why are so many of us putting the pressure on ourselves for destination? Shouldn't we be more focused on making our trip a great trip? And that's where I go. So taking this and applying what you're saying, Dan, even to coaching, right? I ask people this: what's your big 3 to 5 every day? What are the 3 to 5 things that you need to do every day to feel great? And you know what? Do those today, do them tomorrow, do them the next day. And you know what happens? You start to feel great. And you know what happens when you feel great? You start to do great. And you know what happens when you do great? You feel even greater.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote it down here, you know, how that mile is always +2, because most of that pressure, it just comes from us trying to do too much in too short of a time. And here's the kicker: never recognizing how much mileage we've already covered and that we're doing good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, and coach, so just tying it together, that guy that enjoys the journey, enjoys the challenges, is willing to take them on, is willing to be generous with his time and his spirit. That's a guy you want to work with. That's a guy you want to do business with. That's a guy the world wants to hear from, right? And that's what I'm becoming. Go back to your phrase that I love, always becoming, right? They're, again, not exonerated. Like always, there's always more growth to be done. I like to say that if being a partner at Comvest is the height of my impact on the world, that's a horrible failure for me. And that's not a knock on my organization in any way whatsoever. I love my team and my business. I'm super proud of what we built. I love coming in every day, but I've got bigger fish to fry out there. And I know, you know, and if people are watching this a year from now, if God help them, I'm sorry, you don't have better things to do with your time, but if they are, and they're going, oh yeah, that's the guy that was a partner at Comvest. That's a failure. That's just, I gotta find bigger challenges. And that's daunting.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, can you take us home on maybe a challenge that you have for those who are listening and watching this? What is one challenge you would have for them?
Well, the challenge is this, right? Get your life down to the big 3 to big 5. And my challenge is, over the next 30 days, execute on your big 3 to big 5, those 3 to 5 things that you need to do every day to feel great and perform optimally, right? That's all I'm asking for. 5 days, Monday through Friday, do them, right? Over the course of a 30-day period, and then self-evaluate, because we always test things over a 4-week period and say, hey, did it work or did it not work? And in 4 weeks, you'll have enough time. You'll have 20 plus big 3s to big 5s done. And if you want to carry it through the weekend, go ahead. But it's a good way for you to keep everything centered and keep you focused and not trying to do too much. 3 to 5 things that help you perform optimally. And I do hope that a physical training program is in there for you as a part of your day. I do hope some, focus on that. Like I said, bringing out the sponge for Dan. It's making his calls, that he's making his calls. And for each person, figure out what your big 3, big 5 are and execute relentlessly. And I'm going to give you this last piece. After you do your big 3 to big 5, you should feel completed for the day. And at that point, you can actually take a little time off. I'm telling you, you're allowed to. We're going to give you permission. I have to give myself permission because, again, we're always chasers. Everyone on this line is a chaser, a builder, a grower. And we got to be careful that we give ourselves some time for ourselves to allow our heads to renew and feel fresh as we go into the next day. Don't make it one continuous day, because that's what people with dementia experience. They feel like it's one continuous day.
Life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
I had
it's
to create
true.
rules. And man, that is such a good takeaway. 3 to 5, at the end of the day, you should feel damn good that you did that.
Oh yeah.
I love that. Can I close? Give you one thing that I've learned that hit me super hard is Steve Nudelberg gave me the idea. Don't treat it like just business. Don't take the humanity out of it. Be a person, be generous, be spiritual. I mean, it's just, however you want to be spiritual, don't be religious, but just know that we're all in this together, and don't view business development as being binary, as you either have something for me and you have value, or you don't and you're worthless. There's value everywhere. You got to find it. And once you find it, you talk about compounding, holy shit. I mean, that compounds in ways that is mind-blowing to me. And
guys, we're gonna have to save that for part 2. We are wrapping this up. I apologize. We are gonna have a part 2. This is fun. Everyone who's listening in, thank you so much for doing this. Coach, Dan, awesome to see you.